Okay, so in today's video, I actually just wanted to talk a little bit more about the gap, because it's not something that you see a lot of people talking about. And when you get to this part of the spiritual journey here, it can be intensely difficult and really difficult to understand. So I wanted to make this video just in case anyone else is going through this process, so you know you're not alone, and so you can get a bit of understanding. All right, so what is the gap? The gap's where we hold all of our denied fear, guilt, shame, all the stuff that we haven't wanted to look at. And so the ego is designed, and its sole purpose is to keep all of this fear, guilt, and shame completely hidden from the real self. And so when we start the spiritual journey, our point of awareness is here, completely identified with the ego. And so we've got absolutely no remembrance whatsoever of our real self. And then as we progress further and further and further, so you start completely, this is where most people in the world are, just completely identified with the ego. But once you step out of that a little bit, this is where you start having all those, spirituality seems nice, it seems fun, it's it's all this stuff, it's all rainbows and roses and everything else. Then you move on a little bit more, everything's still good, blah blah blah, and then you might hit a dark night of the soul here, get through that, keep going, everything seems good. You're starting to get closer to the real self, having a little bit more remembrance, having a few more spiritual experiences, things like that. Then you might hit another dark night of the soul somewhere here, and keep going, more great experiences, more remembrance, everything else, and maybe you'll hit another dark night of the soul. Keep going, and of course, the ego, remember, its sole purpose is to keep all of this hidden from this. So this is what causes the dark nights of the soul along the way. It's the ego, knowing that you're getting away from complete identity with the ego. As you progress closer to your real self, the ego self will try and pull you back. It doesn't want you to get close to this. Its whole job is to keep you away from this. So that's what the dark night of the souls are on these points here. But then once you hit this point, this is where all hell breaks loose. And so once you do hit this point, though, this is where the ego really will throw every trick at its book at you. So anything that you've ever been through in your past, anything that you've ever overcome, it's going to come back, and it's going to come back harder and stronger than ever before, because the ego is going to do everything in its power to keep you, or to keep the real self, from having to face any of this. And so what you'll find is that once you kind of enter the gap and this is how you know that you've entered the gap, because in the gap it's a complete oscillation, because here you're not oscillating back and forth between anything. You're still in the ego. But once you've entered the gap, you're having these profound experiences of entering into here. But then the ego, because it's not completely dead yet, is pulling you back here. And so you're going from here back to here back to here. And in that process, it feels like you're having these amazing, you're remembering your real self, and you know exactly who you are. You've remembered yourself, you've found yourself, but the ego wants to pull you back here. And so you're going from complete remembrance of yourself, complete bliss, peace, happiness, joy, all that stuff, back to the depths of hell and despair. And so literally anything and everything that the ego can throw at you, it will, and it will feel like you're losing your mind at times, and it feels like, I can't really describe it, and That's going to look different for every person because it's going to be based on your particular fears, your particular shames, guilts, whatever it is that you're holding. So I just wanted to do this edit just to kind of add that when you hit this point, the ego in you knows you and knows your fears, your guilt, everything else. It knows everything about you. So it's going to create experiences based on that. Essentially, it's going to be you facing your biggest fears. That fear ultimately isn't real, but yet you still have to feel it in order to release it. Just like the guilt and the shame isn't real, you need to feel it in order to release it. And the way that you're able to feel it is through your experiences. So the point to remember is that those experiences are there to make you aware of these things that you're holding and to not get caught in those experiences. So whatever's happening is happening to show you what you are denying inside yourself. But this is the point of the gap, though, is because this fear, guilt, and shame is denied, the point is for it to not any longer be denied and for it to become conscious, for your real self to become conscious of it. And this is how you cross the gap. And you cross that gap by realizing and acknowledging, instead of denying, the fear that you're holding, the guilt that you're holding, the shame that you're holding. And by acknowledging it and recognizing that it's there, and what you actually recognize and realize then is in doing all of that, and once you allow that to surface, you recognize that the ego is absolutely brutal, disgusting, despicable, and it is out to kill you, literally. And this is what it's trying to do. When you enter this point, the ego is literally trying to kill you because it thinks you're trying to kill it, and you kind of are. Because by crossing the gap, you are killing the ego. The ego disappears. And so what does anything do when it's fighting for its life? It defends itself. So this is why this is a really, 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 really difficult point in the spiritual path. See, the thing that does keep you going, though, is, and this is why it's very different than the dark night of the soul, is, because if you were to experience any of this kind of stuff back here, I mean, it would probably kill you, literally. But what keeps you going here is that because you are oscillating, so you're having these amazing, so you might have like 2 weeks of being back into your real self, and it feels absolutely incredible. It's amazing. So then when, the ego attacks and you're back in hell again, it's like you are in absolute hell and despair, but you also remember, while you're in this, you just remember being in here, and you just kind of want to get back there again. And so, that's what keeps you going. So, if it wasn't for the oscillation and you were getting these attacks from the ego, back in the anyway here, there's no way you couldn't survive it. Like, it is literal hell. Also, as well, just for anybody that is still here, maybe this is why people don't really talk about this much, because it is quite scary. But so for anyone that is still anywhere in this kind of region, don't let what I've just said put you off. Because as scary and as hellish as it is, it's also absolutely beautiful and amazing, because you're back to your real self. Not all the time, but you're back in your real self enough to not let this hell destroy you, essentially. And the realization as well is that, because you don't realize here that your ego, when you're fully identified with the ego, you don't realize that the ego is out to kill you. And it absolutely is out to destroy you. It's out to destroy everyone that you know. That's the ego's job, is to destroy you, to lead you into death. And you don't realize that here, but you certainly realize it here. And that's kind of what makes it easier as well to let go of that false self, because once you realize the absolute hatred and evilness of the ego, you don't want to be back. You never want to be back here ever again. You don't want to be that separate self ever again. You never want anything to do with this side ever again, because you realize that you cannot live without being connected to God. You cannot live without being connected to your source. You can't live without truth. You can't live without love. And the ego self is hate. And it's built on hate. It's the opposite of love. Even in here, when you're fully identified with it, sure, there's moments of love in life, absolutely. I mean, we would be annihilated without those moments. But the ego self itself, though, is hatred, built on hatred. And also another thing that I wanted to add as well is that just like the real self, so the real self is, call it what you want, unity, the one, Christ, love, God, whatever you want to call it. The real self is, there's no separation in the real self. But once you kind of get to here, you realize there's also no separation in the ego self. Just like there's only one real self, there's also only one ego self. And so you realize that, just like, you hear it all the time, and people say, oh, everything is you. See your brothers and your sisters as yourself, which is 100% true. But people always use that in a real self, like we're all one. We're all one with God, and people normally use it in that kind of a sense. But what people kind of don't understand is that we're all one ego. And so when you kind of get over here, you can see that this is why, you cannot look at any single person doing any single depraved act in the world and not see it as yourself. Or not your real self, obviously, but your ego self. Because we all share the same ego. So therefore, anyone that does anything in the world, you can't look at someone like, let's say, Donald Trump and have hate for that person, because by doing that, what you're really doing is having hate for yourself. And even to have hate for the ego, even if you're hating your own ego self, it's not the answer. The answer is to have awareness that it is your own ego. And by projecting that outwards onto somebody, say like Donald Trump or whatever, you're missing your own opportunity to understand that it's your own ego that you despise, that you hate, because that ego that is you, it's all you. There's only one ego. So by realizing that hatred is inside of you, you can start to become aware of it and then release it and realize that this entire ego self is a complete lie. And it's a lie built to keep you hidden from fear, guilt, and shame. And we project that fear, guilt, and shame outwards onto, well, just like my example with Donald Trump, when we need to see that stuff is inside all of us, because there is only one ego self, one ego mind, one false ego mind. And so the moment we can kind of realize that is in all of us, we all share the same ego, and it's up to all of us individually to see that all of that stuff is inside of each of us. And it's by becoming aware of that and acknowledging these things inside of us that bring us closer to our real self and enable us to then cross that gap and stay here and not have to return. And so, yeah, that is pretty much it. And I really hope that you got something out of that. And until next time.